Hello, Avila Microeconomics students. So it is Sunday, June 28th. We'll start our new week on Monday, on June 29th. So um, keep on doing what you're doing. I would encourage some more to jump into a little bit more activity. I can track that and see that online about who's spending time in the class and who is not. So I will tell you again, it's so imperative in these 8-week courses to stay on top of things, whether it's in my econ lab or this course, in order to be successful. But if you stay on top of things and do your work, you can have a lot of success. So we'll give you a little bit of overview of week 2. So in week 2, again, you're going to read chapters 3 and 4. You're going to know about the mechanics of supply and demand and what causes shifts in supply and demand. And your form discussion is going to be asked you to think about something in the markets recently, or you can look at newspaper articles about a shift in supply or demand, or both. There's a lot of things going on with COVID-19 right now. Plenty of examples. I think about changes in supply for those plants that have coronavirus and they don't have as many employees, so they've lost inputs to production. That way you see the supply curve shifting in, and the price of beef has gone way up if you go to the Walmart and try to buy some hamburger or something else now. There's also been demand. We had the crazy run on the toilet paper a few months ago, so it kind of wasn't a factor other than price. It was, everybody was panicking and going out and buying, hoarding toilet paper, so you didn't see on the shelves. But all of a sudden, the toilet paper that was existing, the stores could jack up the price for those willing to pay for it. So I never think that toilet paper would end up needing to be a public good, but I don't know if the government should intervene in that market. But anyway, it was a lag in having the availability of paper products on the shelves. So some other things, you want to go to writing assignment week 3, so I want you to start thinking about that. So look at that, and then again, again, I'm just stressing. I can't stress enough. You got to stay on top of things in these courses because they do go so quickly. So stay active, stay often in the forum discussions. What I'm looking for is well-developed paragraphs. So, your introductory post. Have you really thought about this? I always think a good paragraph. I've learned this through a writing specialist that went to K-State. You have the triple EX, I like to call it. Exposition, what's your thesis statement, your argument, what are the examples, and what is the explanation? Why does this matter? So if you're capturing all those things in a paragraph, probably at least a good 6 to 8 sentences. Make sure to do that to your peers too when you respond to them. You just don't want to say, "I agree with your post. Good job." No. Further that discussion. How can you add to that discussion? Go out and do some research. Look at some evidence. Pull out other newspaper articles, other events that's going on right now from us, any scholarly source. So do that, because that's what we want you to do in academics. We want you to go beyond just commentary. You want evidence and data to support what you're saying. So I'm going to go over a few things for chapter 3 and 4 in your readings. You're going to go over first chapter 3, the basics of supply and demand. I'll start with the demand side first. That's an inverse relationship. We would have a downward sloping demand curve because you have price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. And if it deals specifically with price, I'll tell you this, that we call that a change in supply and demand. So if the price of a Coke goes from $1 to $1.50, you're simply moving along that demand curve. If it's a factor other than price, we call that a change or a shift in demand. So what causes that curve to shift? If Oprah says you should stop drinking Cokes, probably what you're going to see is the demand curve shift in. The price of Coke is going to drop unless people are drinking Coke. But if Oprah says Coke is good for you, it's healthy, drink as much as you want, you'd see that demand curve shift out. And this is what firms engage a lot in advertising, especially if you have a good quality product. They're going to spend a lot of money. You watch the television commercials all the time. That's to influence your demand. It's to shift that demand curve out for that particular product or service. Some shift factors of demand. It could be income. Obviously, your income goes up. You can afford to buy more goods and services. Could that shift your demand out? Taste and preferences. What is popular? Expectations, taxes and subsidies. So all these can shift that demand curve outward or inward. On the supply side, I view that as a positive or direct relationship. You get the supply curve going up. There's underlying reasons why the demand curve and supply curve are shaped the way they are. Demand, there's also the idea that, as I'm consuming more of a good or service, the level of satisfaction that I get from it is going to decline each time. So if you want me to consume more, you're going to have to lower the price. Supply side, they have input cost and other factors. So if you want me to supply more to the market, you're going to have to pay more too. So again, same idea, change in quantity supplied is a movement along that supply curve, a factor dealing specifically with price. Factors other than price or shifts of a supply curve, those could be technology, expectations, also taxes and subsidies, the number of firms in the market, cost of input. So all these things can shift that supply curve. Okay, so after chapter 3, you go through the mechanics, you're going to look a little bit more at some examples of very specific shifts in supply and demand. It could be singles, one curve is just shifting, both curves are shifting, but they give a little bit more explanation. They talk about within markets, these exchanges, where we go when we make exchanges. We typically think of a supermarket or store, but it could also be an electronic market. One of the ones that fascinates me the most is the trade for foreign exchange. It's, I would argue, one of the largest markets in the world, buying and selling of currencies. And with that, what has changed tremendously over the years, I would argue, is transaction cost and also information cost. So with technology, you can pretty much see right away what somebody's willing to pay for a good or service, whether it's a foreign exchange, or you can look up on your phone. You can use applications like Priceline, who's willing to give you the best price. So I would argue that transaction costs are going down, but at the same time, the number of firms competing is decreasing. So we'll talk about that later, whether there's this implicit collusion that happens in markets that doesn't let price get to what an equilibrium price should be. But you're going to look at that in these discussions, the equilibrium price, the idea of a shortage or surplus. You're going to apply that concept to price ceilings and price floors. Price ceilings, I always like to think that the price can't go above a certain price. Rent controls are an example of that. They did this years ago, probably a decade ago in Hawaii with gasoline. They were complaining about how much they had to pay. They want to put a cap on it. Typically, any time you have it where the situation is that the equilibrium is greater than that ceiling, you got a problem in the market. So it doesn't allow it to get to that equilibrium. Anytime it's below, it's fine. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that Kansas City establishes for a one-bedroom apartment that you can't charge any more than $2,000. If the equilibrium price is $1,000, there's no issue. But if all of a sudden they set a price ceiling of $500 and the market says, well, the equilibrium is $1,000, you got a lot more people wanting apartments than what people are willing to supply. So you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a shortage. Okay. Price floor, probably the most famous one is minimum wage. I know in Missouri we're going to $10.15 January 1st. 2021, that's going to progress up to $12 over a series of 85-cent increases. It will impact my son. He's 17. He's working a job, so in January he will get a little bit of a pay bump. But as long as the equilibrium is greater than that minimum wage, everything is fine. But if you start to go in and say, hey, the minimum wage needs to be $14 an hour, and the equilibrium wage is only $10, you have a problem. You got a lot more people willing to supply their hours at $14 an hour, and not a lot of businesses that want to hire people. So although you've tried to actually help the market, you made things worse off, and you could have increased unemployment. So governments need to be very intentional and thoughtful about these price floors and price ceilings, because sometimes they can cause disruptions to market and don't allow it to reach equilibrium. Okay, so that was a little bit of an overview this week, but again, if you have questions, do email me. Again, I can't stress enough, make sure you stay on top of things. You should be engaged in an online course daily, either checking things, responding, map out your schedule through the week. What do I need to do? And if you do that, you're going to have a lot of success in this course. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you online in the forum discussions.